This is the A to Z podcast. I'm Zach Jackson. He's Andre Knott at Dre Knott at Akron Jackson on most of your favorite social media platforms, at A to Z podcast.com, at facebook.com/A to Z podcast. Shouts as always to Scene, to the Honeymoon Grill, to our friends at American Fireworks for helping to make this thing happen, to you guys for helping it grow. Dre, we're not having a winter here. I know it's supposed to be like 14 degrees on Friday, but I was just pumping gas like an hour ago. Feels like it's 50 degrees. You are going to spring training in 2 weeks. The Indians are reporting for spring training. Because I don't have a place I want to start, I just want to say I kind of feel for our cohorts in the full-time radio biz because the Cavs are a disaster, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
The Indians haven't lost a game since September, but the perception has been bad. And the Browns are the Browns. And, like, if you're getting excited about hiring position coaches, then God bless you. Please stay out of my Twitter mentions.
Well, those are the people that are in your Twitter mentions. You're right. It feels like the Indians have lost 100 a game, back-to-back years when people talk about the Indians. The Cavs, you know what, though, in all honesty, and I think this year kind of proves it, because we'd always had these conversations. And this isn't attacking anybody. Some people will take it as attacking. Because I was going to bring up, I've already got basketball questions I want to bring up to you. I've said this for a while, and I think not in months like this, years like this, it proves it. We're not a basketball town. I think we love high school basketball. You and I have witnessed year after year after year going down to Columbus for the Final Four. I miss being able to do that with my job that I have now. You and I have grown up around high school basketball in Northeast Ohio. We know that there is a strong love for it. But I'd say professionally, I've just never felt like we were a big basketball town, especially when it comes to talking about it on the radio, and I'm not going to make it a black or white thing. I just never thought people – and I'm saying, now like Raj is a big basketball fan. There's no doubt about it. But there aren't many of them out there, and I can tell you from being with program directors and things of that nature – half the program directors don't know how to sell it either. So I think this town has always been behind the eight ball when it comes to basketball. Then you make them bad, as the Cavs are, and I think most people hear you talk basketball and they turn you off immediately, right? It's a tough go of things. It really is. The baseball, and I kind of feel, and at certain times, and people won't like this, baseball too. This is a football town, for better or worse. It's unfortunate because we should be able to have intelligent conversations about all three sports, but that doesn't seem to get people going anymore. And I guess when you look at the ESPNs and the Fox Sports and all these other companies that put out the shows they put out in the morning, yelling and screaming seem to be the way to go, and not having intelligent conversations doesn't seem to be what pays the bills. Now, I was going to ask you in all simple, and to be very simple about it, explain college basketball to me right now, because you don't pay attention to the NBA till March. I don't really pay attention to college basketball until February. It's February. Baylor's been number one. I don't think they're that good. I've watched Duke play 2 crazy games in the last 72 hours. I still don't think Duke's that good. I don't think anybody I've watched is that good in college basketball. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if it's not anybody's good. I would say it's as wide open as it's ever been. Listen, the Cavs are pathetic, and losing is the goal, but I turned it on the other night, and they airballed a 17-foot jumper and missed 3 threes in 2 sequences, right? So we know what they're playing for, and, it's kind of out there that there's not a consensus number 1 pick, right? Which means there's not a super strong top 3. Now, it's still early. I mean, these are kids. We know every year it's 19-year-olds for the most part in the draft pool, but yeah, there's no dominant team. Baylor has not lost, and Baylor has some good wins, but Baylor doesn't have lottery top guys. I mean, I think the stat last night they were playing Texas. Texas has like 7 top 100 recruits from the last 3 classes, and Baylor has 2. Right? So, they play defense. I think Texas didn't even get to 92 points in 2 games against Baylor this year so far. Kansas has the kids that Adidas paid for, as always. I don't know that they have a standout lottery guy. This is just the nature of mainstream college basketball coverage. Kansas got more run for the fight with Kansas State than they will until March, right? So, I just don't know. Spending a lot of time talking about it. I kind of want to, I do take a little bit against you in that it's not a basketball town. I would say right now, because we've had LeBron for, 15 of the last 20 years, approximately?
Yeah.
You know, the bar was raised and the attention was raised, and the bar was raised forever because.
I'll just simply say this. I disagree. I think we're not a pro basketball town. And I say that as a kid that went to the Coliseum. I say that as a kid that went to Gund Arena. I say that as a kid that worked for the Cavs before LeBron and during LeBron. Hell, I used to piss me off, and Sabo will tell you this. I got a group of guys that will tell you this. It pissed me off LeBron's first 3 years when I worked for the Cavs that we didn't sell out, that we couldn't get sellout crowds, that you would have to beg. And it was like we had the biggest thing coming ever. We didn't sell out until they went to the playoffs like 3 years in a row. Now, say what you will about that, but it's 40-some games, 20,000 capacity. You couldn't get 20,000 people to see one of the best players of all time that we grew up 20 miles away. Like, to me, it's just not. And it would take a lot to change my mind on that because, like I said, I've worked around it. I've been in the meetings where they're trying to sell tickets, and I'm like, the fuck are we trying to sell tickets for? You got LeBron James. You should be able to just put up a thing out front and say, hey, we got one of the best talents ever that was born here. He's playing here tonight against NBA talent. Come see him. And they would, and people didn't for whatever.
Okay, well, hold that thought right there. His first go-round, I mean, I think people, wanted to believe, right? And then they became believers real quick. And I think they did well for a long time. I think a lot of people went. I think the second go-around, past the first year, regular season was probably a hard sell, right? And then in the meantime, no, I think I'm glad we kind of started to have this discussion because I think this is true for all sports right now. Like, it's hard to sell tickets. TVs are really good. Tickets are really expensive. And the NBA has to do so much, Dre, to get you there because you pay so much for NBA tickets. It is ridiculous if you wanted to take a family of four to an NBA game. And it's pathetic to think that the Cavs can charge these prices with the product they put on the floor. Right?
I tend to disagree with you. Cavs tickets aren't that expensive. No, I don't pay. But you can get these. And I'm like, look, you could be up pretty high. But the experience, you could get. I mean, if you go to Loudville, you could get two kids in. It's not. I mean, expensive is, and that's a word it's arbitrary for everybody because everybody has their own. I hear what you're saying, but going to Cedar Point is fucking expensive. Doing anything,
well, right.
Is expensive.
But what I'm saying is, like, the NBA has to do all this bells and whistles. For me, it's get off my lawn, right? For you taking the kids, they love it, but they have to do this stuff. They have a league of 30 teams, and I don't know how many superstars do they have. 12, right? How many teams can really win the title? 7, and that's in an open year. So that's 23 teams that got to do all this stuff to get you to go in, and you go once or twice. I don't know why you'd go.
Well, let me turn that around, though. When we were growing up, my parents and your parents didn't take us to games because of championships. See, I think that's where we changed.
Correct.
That's where we changed mentally as well. Like mentally, as adults, and I'm admitting me as well. My parents didn't take me to games because of championships growing up. They took me to games because it was something to do. They took me to games because they knew it got me excited. It got me involved in something else other than whatever was going on in the streets. I think that's part, and maybe this plays into the conversation we're having. I think, and this is, to me, and this is weird to say, to me, this is the strangest thing about sports nowadays because we always talk about it. You and I are part of this issue. What is this as a sports society? You either get Jordan faced or the chip, right? So we have this conversation and we make it out like going to a game and having an experience isn't worth something. Is it like I went to a game a couple weeks ago with a buddy I hadn't seen all off season for me to see what's his name, Zion, and the game was crap to be completely honest. But I had one of the best nights I've had in my off season because I hung out with a good buddy of mine who I hadn't been able to hang out with in a long time. We watched basketball, had a couple beers, had a good night, went home. Would I have preferred to have seen a game where Zion went off for 40 or 50? Sure. But I think a lot of us, and I think it's a different category. It's nothing wrong with wanting championship. There's nothing wrong with wanting a championship product. But at the same time, we have to be realistic. At some point in time, it's entertainment value. And I think we've turned entertainment value into you don't have a championship team. You suck. You're a piece of shit. You're no good. I want nothing to do with you. And I think that, and I know sports radio plays into that, podcast plays into that. I think that attitude's kind of sucking the juice out of what sports is. And as you said, I can sit at home and watch on my big screen TV and tell you how bad the Cavs stink without me going to Quicken Loans Arena or whatever it's called, the field house.
You are 100% right that when we were 9, 10, 11 years old and mom or dad took us to the Cavs game, it had nothing to do with them being in a championship. It was about us going there and seeing it. And I will never forget the feeling of when you walk in that arena and you'd come through the concourse and you'd see the court, or when the players would light up, especially if you had good seats, when the players would come on the court. And think about that time. That was a golden time in Cavs basketball, right? That was Price and Doherty and Larry Nance and those guys. And especially for us, the games were at Richfield Coliseum. Most of the players lived in Summit County, right? Like you had a lot of relation to those Cavs, investment in those Cavs teams, right?
And you know what happened? You know what happened then? And then I'm glad you brought that up. It was a big deal to see when Magic came to town, Larry Bird came to town, hell, even Reggie Miller came to town. I remember when Larry Nance played for the Phoenix Suns. I went and saw them again, and only because they had a good team. And that's what bothered me about Cleveland, Ohio. And you can go back to where you're at. That's what bothered me about when we had LeBron the first time through. And you kind of skipped over it because they would go on the road, and the Cavs were the best draw on the road in the NBA. Then they couldn't sell out at home. They were averaging like 17, 18 per game. And I remember thinking to myself, how do we have the biggest draw in the NBA and we can't even sell him out at home? And I know this is a fact. Like, I know 3-4 years in, we couldn't sell out for LeBron. And it drove me insane because it's like, is anybody paying attention to what we have right now? This isn't going to last forever. And it's not. And we're living it now.
Well, sure. And look, that's the next point here. If you're just going with your kids or you're just going, you don't go for championships. I think my main point is the LeBron thing has slanted it to, I know what it was like for my friends to be able to get playoff tickets, right? And I know some of them that paid premium dollar, or I know some of them that cashed in favors, or some of them that just plain got lucky, and you couldn't wait for those games, right? But now I think I don't want to speak for anybody. I'm curious the opinion on this. I think, Dre, if you pick a number, 25, 28 and under, if you're listening, I think you'd go to the Cavs game with your buddies or on a date. And specifically, you go for $20, right? If you want to shop around.
Absolutely.
But I think if you're over that age and you lived this, unless you're specifically taking the kids, going with their youth basketball team, taking them for a night to celebrate a good report card or because they want to go see all the bells and whistles, the shit that drives me crazy, I think you'd have a hard time finding too many people that say I would pay $1 to go to the Cavs. And to me, that was...
Well, why is that?
Because the product has gone from can't miss TV to can't watch TV. That's why, to me.
Well, they didn't go when it was can't miss TV, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I still stick by that. I know, like, from the year he was drafted until and I know Sabo somewhere when he's listening to this, he's driving to Painesville, shaking his head, agreeing because it used to drive us insane. So it does, to me, the price, whatever we can throw whatever else it is, but it kind of makes my point that we started with. We had a lot of people, just like the Indians in the 90s when the Browns went away. I mean, and we've had this argument has been had ad nauseum on radio. Hey, the Indians had a great time to hit. They had a brand new, beautiful stadium. Money was big. Money was moving in Northeast Ohio. You had the internet phase that was coming in and things of that nature. And you had the Browns away. And the Indians totally took advantage. And look, they had the sellout streak. We all were a part of it. All right, and I will go back to that. Why didn't we go see the Indians in the 90s when no one – and I'm asking you and I, as two kids that grew up in Akron, Ohio, and obviously our age changed along with it. It was in our teenage years when the Indians got really good.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just going off my head. I mean, we went to games at the old Brown Stadium, baseball games. We went to like maybe 2 a year. My dad would take us. Like I remember the last game I saw at the last baseball game I saw that wasn't at Progressive Field was the last game that John McNamara was the manager before Mike Hargrove took over. It was against the Milwaukee Brewers, and they had Paul Molitor. I'm showing my age. But I know that when the Indians moved into Jacobs Field, that was the thing to do. Now, I don't remember, and I was young. Like I said, I'm not the right age to tell it all. But I know that when the Indians got good and they were in this new stadium, and it was so cool to go into this new stadium because it was nothing like the dump that we had down on the lake. I know once I turned 16, me and my buddy Rob, we played baseball. We played traveling baseball. Anytime we had a chance, we went to Jacobs Field. I mean, I remember sitting up at the high top of Jacobs Field for an opening day against the Angels and they had a walk-off. Jim told me, of course, off Percival. And I remember I froze like I never froze before, and it was the coolest thing ever. And I was probably 15 years old, 16 years old. That became the thing to do. Now the Indian Stadium, which is still Progressive Field, is still pretty freaking good. And I'm not saying that because I'm anti anybody else. Our stadium's still one of the best in baseball. It's got a pretty cool setup, and you can get a baseball ticket for pretty damn cheap. And I know I've skipped sports. The Browns are back. The Browns usually aren't playing when the Indians are. The Cavs are the Cavs. And you get the age bracket thing, which I think is a really cool thing, smart thing to do when you look at this, because there's obviously different tiers to what type of fan you are, right? I mean, we were way different fans when we were 15. And then in college, it was great to just be like, all right, let's go get wasted at an Indians game. Or even we'd even go to Akron and see the Arrows at the time.
Sure.
If they had a cheap beer night, like you even did that last summer.
Correct. I did.
But I guess what I'm getting at is, what kind of town are, and look, and I do not want to be the guy, and I continue to say this, I never want to be the guy that tells someone else what to do with their dollar, their hard-earned dollar. You deserve to do whatever the hell you want with it, however you get it. But I think it is weird that we claim to be a very big-time sports town, and we are. But Cavs and Indians rank towards the bottom. And I don't even know the Cavs attendance, so I shouldn't even go there. But I don't know. And it's not a great product. But you know what? I've gone to 4 or 5 basketball games this year, and I've had a good time. And to me, at the end of the day, having a good time is important, because there's a lot of serious shit going on around our world that ain't having a real good time.
Well, no, that's true. Opening day is opening day, and I would go. I have paid to go, as a matter of fact.
Right.
3 weeks later, you couldn't pay me to go, right?
Well, that's a baseball thing.
But listen, I'll say this about baseball. I'm a casual baseball fan. I have good friends that I talk with all the time that I would hang out with. They will say to me, hey, on Saturday, July such and such, we're going to the Indians game. A bunch of us, let's go. I'm coming in from Youngstown or Columbus or wherever. We have 2 tickets. We're going to get 4 more, blah, blah, blah. This is me just being Reg and being me. My answer is no. Like, I'll go on Tuesday and buy the cheapest ticket and stand out in right field. If it's going to be crowded, I'm not going. I don't care. I'm not going to pay for baseball. That's just me. But I think
it's not crowded. It's not crowded very often, so you should come every damn day.
Well, I know. My last 4 Indians games, I've not gone in the stadium. That's a personal choice.
I know.
But I think before we wander too far off here, I think the bigger picture, Dre, is because I allowed myself the other day to get in a Twitter argument about high school basketball to some level.
Yeah, I saw.
Part of the reason, we used to go to the games because we would read the papers and because we would listen to the radio and because our dads would take us to the games, right? But now kids have YouTube in their hands. Kids and adults have 800 cable channels at home. If you don't go to the game, you sit in the Indians dugout on September in LA and Friday night and you follow the St. V game on Twitter. Right?
I do. Yes.
Right.
And if I could watch it on my iPad, I'd watch it.
So
yes.
You would love to go, and you would love to take AJ, and you would whatever, right? And once a year when baseball ends, we go to a game. Sometimes we make it, sometimes we don't.
Sometimes we make it.
But what I'm saying is it's just changed so much. Friday nights, there's 4 college football games on. They're usually obscure. Those stadiums are only half full, but guess what? The battle is for TV. The battle is for the Twitter viewers, the daily fantasy players, the bettors, and the battle is for the TV time. So when they call up Missouri or Fresno or Toledo and say, you're going to play on Friday at 6:30, a lot of people say, well, that sucks. We can't get there then. But guess what they say? Right. You just tell us, if you want us to play at 6:45, we'll be ready then too. Right?
Yep.
And while I sit at home on that September Friday night and watch Nevada play Fresno, I can follow 14 baseball games. Right? Like
right.
That to me is what's changed, and that's what the competition. It's funny you mentioned that Arrows game where I ran into your family. It was a birthday party for a friend of mine, and he's a big Indians guy and a big major league guy, and it was Ricky Vaughn bobblehead night. So we said, all right, we're going to go there. We're going to get him a bobblehead. Dre, there wasn't a parking spot in the city of Akron, and it was a 15-minute walk from the one we got to the Barley House in Akron because the line was so long of people in full uniform to be the first 1,500 or 2,000 to get. So that's what minor leagues have to do, and that's what it always is, right?
Well, I was going to ask you, is that well, I'm glad you said that. Is that the draw in big league baseball, though, too? And it is.
Yeah, well, it has to be. It has to be because, I mean, 162 is 162 every year.
I agree. 81 home games is a lot, brother. But I've seen this across the country. Like, as you said this, I had a ding, ding, ding going off my head. I've seen it in Seattle where they give out Ken Griffey Jr. going to the Hall of Fame bobbleheads, where there's lines all the way to the football stadium. You know how Seattle's built.
Yeah.
I've seen it in Kansas City on an afternoon game where it's 90 degrees with 90 humidity, and they're giving out Hosmer Gold Glove bobbleheads, and they've got sellouts. It amazes me that, and I don't know if it was, I mean, there used to be bat days and things of that nature. I would love to have the conversation we're having. Look, and I know people will tweet and say, oh, Andre, you're an idiot for this, or Zach, you're dumb for this. I love this conversation, even though I can tell you and I probably don't have all the real answers. And I don't know who has all the real answers. And I would love to sit with the people that make schedules. Like the Rubber Ducks do a great job. You just told the story. The Rubber Ducks bring in characters from TV shows. They do, crazy bobbleheads. They'll do a Lindor one here. They'll do a Clevenger one. They'll do people from The Office, the TV show. They do a great job. And minor league baseball's always had to do that, right? But big league baseball has to do the same thing, Zach. I'm talking about other teams, but I know that when we have promos, there are certain promos, even a dollar hot dog, which is what it is. And I almost said something else. Why does that draw the common human being more so?
We love hot dogs.
Yes, we do.
But you know what that is, Trey? That is a Jedi mind trick, right? That is saying, I know I want to go, and the kids want to go, or the neighbors want to go, or the old buddies from college, we've been planning a night to get together. Why don't we do it then? Because we know we convinced ourselves we just saved $9 in what we're going to spend at concessions. We're still going to pay the park, right? We're still going to buy that $9 beers, right?
Yes,
in my case, I'm still not going to watch a damn pitch, but I've Jedi mind tricked myself into thinking that I've saved that few dollars.
You're right, because my wife and I were just talking about this because look, I'm not a shopper. It's pretty obvious if you know me. But damn it, if I get an email that tells me that one of our T-shirt companies or one of these places I like to get clothes has got 40% off or 50% off, I'll buy a sweatshirt just because I got it for 30. Do I need it? No, but I got it for 30% off. Even though I don't even know what the original price is. I've bought Nikes a couple times because I got $80 off. Did I need them? No.
Well, all that leads me to the current discussion, and there's two ways I want to say this. So we know Trevor Bauer, our old buddy, was back in the headlines for attacking the commissioner for this playoff proposal. And I didn't read past the headlines, so I don't know the full details of this. But there's two elements. We all love Trevor, that he tells the truth. It's refreshing. I don't think saying to the commissioner via Twitter, you're a joke, is a very good look for Trevor, for baseball, for anyone. But I think, but beyond that, and the last thing we can do is sit here and talk about his mistakes. We'll be here till damn 9 o'clock if we do.
Till first pitch of the season.
Yeah, it is, to me, Dre, it's baseball's tug of war of, do we need to do these things to appeal to the new fan base, these out of the box ideas, and grab these headlines before the season, or can we sit and still be 162 games, 9 innings, long days at the park, and have our traditional fan base? I don't know the answer to that, but that, to me, this whole thing screams the identity crisis that they're having, because you're right. The Major League parks have to do it too. Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought that up in the way you brought it up, because before Trevor went on and said what he said, hi, Trevor's dad, if you're listening, I love you. It's funny because we hear proposals and people ask us stuff all the time. And I think the way I said to Matt Underwood last night, because both Matt and I were like we're at a point, we get it. Like, we get baseball is a great sport. And I'm not saying it because I do 160. I do more than 162. I'm going to do about 190. But I get that, to me, I loved baseball before I had the job I had. And I was very much like Zach. I'd watch the first, or like my dad, I'd watch the first 3 innings, go do something for an hour and a half, 2 hours, go to dinner with family, this or that. And then I would try to catch the 8th and 9th. And I pretty much saw what I needed to see. I heard what I needed to hear. Or I went and did something. I listened to the rest of the game. I listened to Hammy and Rosie. And there's nothing wrong with that. And on occasion, and now I'm different. And I've always been,
And, when I lived up in Cleveland, if there was a Tuesday game or a Wednesday game and one of my buddies that worked downtown was like, hey, let's go over to the game real quick. And I think that plays into it. Where you live, like if you had your same house, same setup, if your same setup was in Lakewood, I'm just throwing something out there. If you live, Zach, and me knowing you, if you lived 15 minutes away from Progressive Field, you would go to games.
Yeah, if I lived over the bridge, I would walk to baseball games every other week. Yes.
Right. Just on the randomness of, you know what I mean? Like,
correct.
I get where you're at. You got to make big plans to drive 45 minutes to an hour, one way. Like you got to plan that out. You can't just like I randomly when I lived in Cleveland, when I lived in Ohio City, when I lived in Lakewood, there was no big deal at 6:15 to be at a bar and a happy hour and be like, "You want to go over and check out the Indians tonight?" And you just did it because hey, what's his name pitching for the Angels or the Red Sox are in town. Let's see if we can get a ticket. I think that plays into it, and the population of Cleveland is down tremendously. That plays into the part of not having people to go to games. Now, the whole thing that the commissioner started or whatever's out there, I mean, what was the word you used on what bobbleheads do? Jedi mind trick.
Yeah.
I think what happened yesterday over the last 24 hours, if you guys haven't heard it, about possible playoff changes and things of that nature coming in 2 years, I think it was a Jedi mind trick. The MLB is getting run roughshod. They're not prepared. MLB is not prepared for what we're talking about right now. They're not prepared for the social media attacks, guys being willing and open to say whatever they want and how they want it. Matter of fact, right before we started this, I read a tweet from Gary Sheffield Jr. I don't even think I follow him. It probably got retweeted in my line. But he basically said nothing's wrong with it. And most people in baseball agree completely with what he's going to say. And I'm going to find the tweet rather than misinterpret what he's saying. But I would say most baseball people that I deal with, that I talk to, would go right off of what Gary is saying. Gary Sheffield Jr., not senior, but basically saying nothing is wrong with baseball. And that's it's not. Where is it at? I'm getting it right now, so I'm going through it, and of course it probably was from yesterday. I love baseball. Baseball doesn't have a rule issue; it has a marketing issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard Trevor Bauer say that. I've heard some of our players on the current roster say that. Most baseball people feel like they have a marketing issue, and you don't know the players. I feel like the people in New York that run baseball have no idea. And I've talked to younger people that have gotten hired to help Major League Baseball in marketing, and they walk out and their heads blow up. And I've had people that did marketing for NBA, for NFL, and they get hired by MLB, and they want to quit 3 weeks later because they're like, they don't get that they have to change with the times. And I think when you come out with that proposal, the Jedi mind trick to me is this. Wall Street Journal comes out with an article that's just very damning towards Rob Manfred and his whole scope of what he found the Astros to do and not to do. There's not a lot of good stories about baseball. You have one of the biggest trades ever occur in baseball, and you can't even get it figured out for a week, where you send one of the best players in baseball. That's bad, right? Like, that's bad. So what does MLB do? And you know how this works, bro. Like, the Wall Street Journal story, if people haven't read it, it is pretty bad. Didn't drop till Friday afternoon, which was odd to me. And it was almost like that was their tip of the hat to MLB of, hey, we're getting ready to kill you. You're not going to look good, but we're going to drop it off on Friday afternoon. Good luck. So what do they come out with? And then you still got this Mookie Betts shenanigans going on where they can't figure it out and get it right. And there's medical stuff, and there's this and that. And Trevor's bitching about you shouldn't put trades out until they actually happen. And it's like, Trevor, settle down. You were telling trades about yourself to me before they were out. So let's be careful in how we speak. Just because I was a journalist and didn't say anything doesn't. Regardless, that's not here nor there. And then it's like, so baseball has this been a good offseason for baseball? Like, can you tell me what positive thing that you can think about baseball since the last pitch of the World Series? Who even won the World Series? All we know is the Astros cheated like a mofo for 3-4 years, right? And then we even know during the playoffs they made a girl cry and they had to fire half their like, the Astros just were the blackest eye of black eyes. So the Jedi mind trick of Jedi mind tricks was yesterday to say, hey, we're going to be innovative. We're going to be different. We're going to try something. We're thinking, guys. We want to be like everyone else. Because unfortunately, and I know I'm long-winded in saying this, baseball to me has become a lot like basketball without the social media, winning in social media, without having the big, what did they used to call it? Without having July 1st anymore. Like, baseball used to be where the off season was everything, right? The hot stove isn't in everything. You've talked about it the last couple of years. We got players still. You got C.L. Puig still not signed at the time we're talking about this. Not that he's a superstar, but he's a star.
Well, the NFL has made an event out of the start of their league year, right? The NBA has made a holiday out of the start of their league year, right?
And baseball has none of that.
And baseball has none of that. Now, listen, as far as playoff expansion, I mean, the NFL's trying to go there too. I get it. These problems are not exclusive to baseball. I don't know why the NBA trade deadline was last week, Dre, because the All-Star game is this weekend, which maybe has a little more interest than normal because of Kobe. I can't say that. But think about how long it is until the NBA starts. It's more than 2 full months until the NBA starts the playoffs. The seasons are too long, and the owners are not going to pull back on that. But it's like,
and that's what I'm right.
How are people supposed to care?
It's the same thing, and that's what I'm saying. When baseball's running into problems, the postseason is electric, right?
Yes, it's great.
Postseason baseball is electric. So to them, the only thing we got. We'll give them more playoff baseball. That'll get people to leave us alone. And on one hand, I got to say, I hate playing 162 games and a winner, and then 9 innings decides who moves on. That's bullshit. We've all said it's BS.
Correct.
I got no problem with a 3-game series for the wild card. It needs tinkering what they threw out there. But to me, and Matt Underwood and I said this best. Underwood said it to me best. He goes, we would probably lose money if they were to do this the right way. Meaning, you got to take away some regular season games if you want this proposal that they're throwing out there to work.
I agree.
Make it 150 games. Make it 148. Make it whatever. But you got to get rid of 162 games over 6 months because no one has the attention span to truly keep up, other than my wife, who's just making sure my ass went to work that day.
My grandma's going to be locked in listening on her little radio that's older than me. But, I mean, think about you know how long it is. 162.
Yeah, I
mean, what do you think John Beilein thinks about the next 2 months right now?
Oh! Is this the worst year or best year in John Beilein's life? Honestly.
I mean, I hope he hugs those bags of cash tight when he goes home every night because it's bad. He chose it. He chose it.
He did.
The Cavs chose it.
Well, let me ask you this: it's too. We're not rich, but like we always hear this and people say this. I think John Beilein's year right now proves that money ain't everything. I would much rather make half of what I'm making and be in college if I'm him. Personally.
Well, I mean, Luke Fickell just turned down double his money yesterday to stay at Cincinnati. Yeah. Now, maybe that says more about the state of Michigan State athletics than anything else.
True. What does that say about Michigan State athletics? I'm glad
when we do our list of undefeated things, Dre, we don't put money on it because it's not 100% undefeated.
Right.
No. But it's close. You know. I honestly think, let me say this the right way. People are overboard with how they handle their kids' sports now and travel ball and specialization and the money they invest, right, in their kids doing this. Okay. And I love high-level baseball, and, kids get a chance. But I think you got to ask yourself if you're really starting to count your investment and the way they do things now where they make teams stay in certain hotels and people are just raking money hand over fist from gullible parents. Like there's only 11.8 scholarships in baseball and there's only so many guys that get drafted and minor leaguers make $20,000. So I know we're not all 6'5", right? But what are we really doing here? Like football participation numbers are down and I get that. There's still 85 scholarships from 130 programs.
I got to tell you something, though. I'm glad you said that, and you're right. But from my experience in life, if AJ has a chance to be the 78th, the 70th guy on a football team or the 15th guy on a college baseball team, he ain't going to play football. And that's just experience.
I get it. I get it.
When you're the 80th guy, and you're right. And there's certain people, and I get what you're saying. There are certain people in high school right now. And their kids, and I totally get this, and I don't want to come off snide in any way possible because the way life worked for me, it worked. But I hope because about life worked the way for me, the way it did, my son won't have to go through what I did. When you're on the bottom of a roster, of a college football roster, you get the shit beat out of you. And it's not, unless you're smart enough to get out of it or smart enough not, like it's just, I just saw a lot of guys that you don't write about, that I don't tweet about, that we don't podcast about, that got the living hell beat out of them for 3.5, 4 years because they got a scholarship. So if my son is in that situation, I would say, go play baseball, son. We'll put money aside. We'll pay for yours. Here's the problem. I have nothing against parents putting money in trying to help their kid get a college education. But that's not the finish line, right?
Sure.
Like whether your son plays at Division III, or whether your son plays Division I, or whether your son never plays again and plays CYO and plays around with his buddies and gets drunk and plays softball with a keg in second base. That's not the finish line or the end of the road. It's what they're doing in life. And so many people and being a parent is fucking hard. I tip my hat to anybody that's parenting. It's not easy. But I wish we put as much effort into what our kids are at 22, 23 as we do at 13 or 14 when we're making them. Like one of the best baseball players I ever grew up with, and I won't say his name because I would never embarrass. He should have been playing Major League Baseball, but he wasn't because his dad was overbearing. His dad was that dad that you and I can't stand today. The guy that made it, and as soon as he got to college, he lost his mind in 3 weeks and lost his scholarship and never played again because he was never allowed to get out of the house. He was never allowed to be a kid.
You're right, and we could go on with this. If we get into the economics of the argument, we got to be careful because if you do play 6 years in the NBA, you make enough money that could be like it changes your whole family for generations.
Generational. Yep.
Right? But you have to understand the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. And you have to understand the guys who do win the genetic lottery, the guys who are McDonald's All-Americans, the guys who do become 3, 4, 5-star recruit prospects for these huge programs in any sport. Even the 1% of them actually get to that point, right?
Right.
And the goal to be the best 9-year-old is a little delusional. And we've been laughing for multiple years now about the guy who was signing his emails of the director of player development for the 8-year-old baseball team.
Right.
You know, I don't root against kids except that guy's kids.
Well, here, I did this with my nephew the other day. My nephew's a good kid.
But
he's a really good kid.
You know how it is.
You
know how it is when I speak up and say that your alma mater is allowed to play by different rules, and you start going back at me. We come to the agreement that I'm not against kids, right? And there are kids that have used that vehicle to go on and do great things, and the kid they have right now is going wherever he wants, and he might be the second best player of this century at that school, and I hope so.
Yeah.
But we both know there's 10 kids, just to use a number, that come there expecting things or with wrong ideas and really aren't in the reality of it. You know?
Well, okay, but whose problem is that?
That's theirs. Right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
And that's what I always say back to you. Like, at some point in time, we need some no men in our life. And, like, we need some people to be honest. Like,
Correct.
I was gonna say,
and everybody, I don't care where you go to school or what sport you play. You need that.
Right.
I
just had this conversation with my 13-year-old nephew, and I love him. And he's a good kid. He's going to turn out all right. But we were watching XFL football this weekend. His mom, my mom, sitting in my living room, my kids. And I'll give my nephew this. He wanted to watch the XFL. He's got a lot of Zach and Andre in him, for better or worse, where he's telling us where guys went to school and what this guy is. You know, like, he's us, you know, like, and that's why I love him. And we started talking, and I was like, dude, it's a Saturday in February. You should be playing basketball somewhere. What the hell? And his mom looked at me and kind of nudged me. And I'm like, no, he should be playing basketball. And he looked at me, he goes, Unc, I'm getting a football scholarship. And I just start laughing. I go, for doing what? Carrying the water? And I wasn't trying to be mean to him. And it was funny because my dad texted me later and kind of gave me the good job. And I gave him the same speech my dad gave me when I was 12 or 13. I go, how many kids in Copley have gotten a scholarship in the last 4 years to play football? And you should have saw his little face, because I wasn't trying to crush his dreams. I was just trying to give him a reality check.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, we had a guy going to Air Force. And I go, okay, how many guys were on the team? And I was like, just start doing all the numbers. I'm like, dude, I'm not saying you can't make it. And I'm not saying I won't do everything in this world that I can do to help you get a scholarship. But don't sit here at 12, 13 years old and tell me that bullshit, because I know the numbers are against you. So I'm like, you better read. I go, you're too smart to be sitting around saying that. You better play every sport you can possibly play, but do not sit here at 12, 13 years old and tell me you're sold on you're getting a football scholarship because you're lying to yourself. And I go, and I wouldn't be a good uncle if I let you sit here and think that.
Correct.
And it hurt his feelings, but I know his mom and his dad, everybody texted me later on the night and was like, thank you for being honest with him.
Yeah. No, you're right. Look, along those lines, I want to clarify a little bit what I said. I'm not telling anybody, how to parent their kid, especially if he's some sort of a gifted athlete. But a bad life lesson is when the going gets tough, transfer, right? I know that much.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, one of these elite baseball programs had me out to talk about social media and how it's changed. And social media has changed college sports, guys. Guys have lost scholarships. Things have been discovered.
Coaches have lost their jobs.
Coaches have lost jobs. They've resigned to spend more time with other people's families. Yes, that's how it's going on. But what I said was to these parents after I talked to the kids, because the parents were hanging around too. It was out at Pinnacle, out by your house. I said, guys, I can't tell you as parents, how much to spend on hitting lessons or pitching lessons, or if your 9-year-old needs to play four basketball games on Sunday and then go to baseball. I said, that's all your personal choice, right? Playing 80 games a summer and all that. I said, but I can tell you it's not good when you take to Facebook to criticize the coaches, right? When you take to Facebook to declare your little Johnny the best 11-year-old ever, because that trophy is absolutely nothing, right? So it's just a different time. And, to go back to the last podcast, I mean, I don't want to say this with a little bit of the stupid rumors that have been making their way around the Twitter sphere involving Cleveland's quarterback. I'm not going to comment on that. I can't believe that. Well, just let me say this. I can't believe that the girl went on the radio. I would say this, that when you're always on social media, you're always on social media, right? And we can acknowledge that Twitter is a small population, but when the stuff takes off, the stuff takes off. And that's why it's changed sports, right? All the 4th, 5th, 6th grade kids I know, friends of kids of my friends, they are all on their phones watching NBA highlights on YouTube, playing fantasy football, right? That commercial with the little kid before the Super Bowl that I thought was really well done.
It was awesome. Yeah.
The kids at our Super Bowl party were standing up. They know that kid because he has his own highlight videos on YouTube.
Right.
You want to bet me $1 right now that kid ever plays college football?
Yeah. He better use that money for that commercial. I mean, I don't want to be mean. Like, we all need to check ourselves. And I don't know where this podcast has gone. This is what happens when we don't prepare anything. I like it. I think there's a lot to it.
Well, what else are we supposed to talk about, quite honestly?
No, this is good. But let me go back to something. I got to ask you about the Michigan State job. And just, you kind of glossed over it, but you said it. I mean, dude, think about it. I'm 41. I'll be 42 in a couple months. I got one letter, and this is mid-'90s, obviously, and this isn't about me. I got one letter from Michigan State back in 94, 95, and I think John L. Smith was the coach at the time or whatever, or whoever. And I think, and it may not have been. It may have been George Pearl still, but it don't matter. I got like a bullshit like in 93, 94. I think I ran laps around Madrid Avenue like Wonka. It's just dropping chocolate bars. Did the letter mean anything? No. Did I get anything else from Michigan State? No. but it meant the world to me. I got it pinned up on my wall.
Well, as it should. And but guess what now? The first thing you'd do if 16-year-old Andre would do is run and put it on Twitter.
Yeah. God, that's disgusting. And you're right. But I was going to say, I got a bunch of stuff from Cincinnati, and look, I think Cincinnati's a great program, and I love what it's become. I just can't believe that 25 years later that Michigan, and look, and I'm happy that he stayed. I really am. But man, what a statement that you'd rather stay in Cincinnati and be the Bearcats football coach and not Michigan State's football coach. Yeah. To me, that's earth-shattering. And if you're in the Big Ten, you better check yourself and look in the mirror because and it goes back to something you said earlier. Hey, man, if I'm Toledo, damn right I'll play Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, even though it doesn't help my schedule. Damn right I'll play Wednesday night. I guess what I'm saying is the willingness of all these other conferences to play at any time, any place, the use of social media. You can now recruit the same kid like it used to be. If you got recruited by Michigan State, you only got recruited by Michigan, Indiana, Boston College.
Sure.
But now you literally can pick Cincinnati over Michigan State. And I think Zach and Uncle Andre and Uncle Zach would say, "Good job," right?
Well, there's I don't know in detail, but the sexual assault stuff that involved Michigan State on an administrative level, and some football players were involved. I don't think anybody knows what's going to happen there, right?
Sure.
They do not have enough good players. I mean, they're the Browns and Bengals of the AFC North. They're in the same division as Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, which is an NFL team, right?
But they competed up until 2-3 years ago. They were able to compete with the other Ohio teams.
They were doing a great job of getting recruits from Ohio, from the Midwest, that were good football players and didn't have the flash at the recruiting stage of the other guys.
Right. They can get the 3 stars and make them into 5.
Listen, they had a really great run of quarterbacks too, which obviously matters, right? They had Kirk Cousins and Brian Hoyer and Drew Stanton.
True. That's a good point. They had great running backs. They've always had great running backs.
Yeah. Going back all the way.
They've always had good receivers, good corners. Then they get their linemen from the mid. Like they did it the right. They had a plan and it worked, Zach. They didn't, like you said, they weren't getting 5 stars.
It can still be a good job. They still have loyal people there, but I understand why Luke Fickell wouldn't take it right now, because he's going to win. He's going to eventually have his choice of a really good job, but in the meantime, he's going to win. And I'll say this: this can go to the whole discussion too. Like Alabama and LSU and Ohio State football, and like St. V basketball, which we talked about, and like the New York Yankees and baseball, like they didn't all become this by accident, right? But when you're not those programs, like you need culture changers along the way. You need somebody to say, I'm going to stay and it's going to be different. And so everybody just assumed, because every other coach does it, because money's damn close to undefeated, right, that Luke Fickell was going to go for $5 million or whatever it is.
Right.
And some of the numbers being thrown out for who they have to go next that I'm hearing in the rumor mill are like, holy crap, but they might have to do it. But like eventually you have to stay. And I mean, I might be wrong. Luke Fickell might be at Cincinnati 9 more months. Or he might be there 3 more years and they might win like crazy. I don't know. It's not an even playing field. It's not in life, and it's certainly not in college football.
But didn't you just answer something? You just said something. You answered something with your own answer. Maybe they don't need to go out and spend multi-millions and find a real game changer who Michigan State matters to him, and they go out and do it the right way. And not just throw a bunch of money in the air and hope it fixes everything.
No, you're right. I think you're going to have to be patient. I think you almost have to take on a rebuild approach. I mean, for him to quit before signing day, right? First of all, it tells you they didn't have very good class. No, it's the secondary signing day now. I know that's changed. But what Ohio State is getting at signing day every year, and that's almost anybody they want. The only guys Ohio State doesn't get are the guys that go to Clemson and LSU and Alabama, right?
Right.
At Michigan, like they're still putting out X amount of NFL players every year, even though they're getting trucked on the last Saturday in November. It's a great universe. And Penn State, I mean, James Franklin, I'm not a big fan because of some of the things he's done, but they're putting guys in the league. Like I've been to 2 of their pro days. It doesn't look like Ohio State. It's close, right?
I want to have a conversation about James Franklin, but I think we better have it off mic. I don't know. I know some Vanderbilt stuff. I know some Penn State stuff. I'll just say this. He's a really good football coach.
Yeah.
On game day. I don't know enough to – that's why we need to talk. I don't know enough to sit here on a podcast and kill him or put him on top of my shoulders and run around with him. But I will say I like what he's been able to do with that Penn State program from where it came from as well.
Guess who these schools hire? Guess who these schools hire? Really good football coaches.
Exactly. And they deal with the rest later on, right? You deal with – I mean, look where Penn State was at before they brought – and I'm not here – like I said, I'm not here calling him a Hall of Famer. But look where they were at before they were where they were at. Penn State was a tough job. Bill O'Brien – I think The Athletic has a great story about recruiting up. And it was talking about recruiting Christian what was the kid?
The 2013 QB class.
Yeah. Yes. And I glanced through it. I didn't read the story all the way, but it was really good and very telling in how hard it is to recruit quarterbacks and know what they're going to become, right? Like, and know, but like that whole Penn State situation was not good. Bill O'Brien, I thought, was the perfect person for there. He realized right away that Penn State's a different place too. By the way, like Penn State's not Ohio, it's not Columbus. It ain't East Lansing. It ain't. It's like to get the kids that they get to come there to win.
You got to sell the shit out of that program because it ain't selling. And no offense to Penn State and the Beaver County and all those, but it's a different place.
Sure is. All right. I can't believe we've covered 50 minutes here. I'm not quite sure what we talked about, but we talked about a lot, I think.
Yeah, we did. And we didn't even have to talk about the Browns coaches or anything like that, so good job. You did bring up that story that I'm not going to touch, but it's so now.
Hey, no, listen, that's what I want everybody to remember, that when you're always on social media, you're always on social media, right?
Yeah. But, hey, and what did I say in text earlier? Because you're right. But it's scary because we've always heard people do anything for their 15 minutes of fame. And literally social media proves that every 15 minutes.
It does.
It does. You know
the greatest tweet of all time is every day there's a main character on Twitter, and the goal is to never be it.
Right.
It's the greatest tweet of all time.
It's right up there with don't end up on Deadspin. And Deadspin's dead. We lasted longer than Deadspin. How about that?
Sunday night, Dre, I was completely bored, completely in chill mode. There was no more basketball on. The Oscars were on. I ain't been to the movies since 2009. Eminem came. I was working on. I was half working on something. I was half looking at Brody's basketball schedule. Eminem came on, and the next thing you know, I'm firing off like 4 tweets. And I'm not getting in any arguments or anything, but I'm saying to myself, like, you know better than to do this because it's that next argument's always around the corner.
Right? Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And we, especially as I get older, I'm more conscious of this. You need a break from everything. Like you need a break from baseball. You need a break from your kids. You need a break from the drive every day. You need a break from Jen sometimes. Right?
Yes.
Like we all need that break from social media. Like it's different from everyone, and you don't have to announce it, right?
Right.
But like. It just comes a point where you got to say, like, this is not the real world because it's not. Trevor Bauer, you need a break from Twitter, my man.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. We all do. You're right. And I've been going through it myself. I'm not going to say I've been in the social media depresses me at this point. I'm being completely honest with you. I just told somebody Friday night. I was like, I barely go on social media now. I barely say anything because I just hate where everything goes. It's just like it's like at this point, like no matter like if I'm on it for 10 minutes, I know I'm going to see something that either disgusts me, pisses me off, or see somebody talking about something they have no idea what they're talking about, but they're talking like they're the general of it. It amazes me.
Yeah, it's
So let me ask you this: Copley's got a pretty good boys basketball. They got a couple players in their basketball team. I've heard. I need to go watch before I leave. I leave in what's today's date? I got 14 days. I had to, and this is for everybody out there because we do this for everybody. High school basketball playoffs are getting ready to start. Girls I know have started already. I've been to probably about 6 female high school basketball games already this year. Close friend, family, friends, daughter I've watched, and she's going to be pretty good. I think I'm going to go watch her again tomorrow night. If I had one high school basketball game to watch, obviously I know about St. V. My dad and I are pushing to go see the Copley team, from what we've been told. Anybody else? And I always want to go see Babe's team just so I can give him shit. Any other team? I know Green is supposed to be pretty.
Well, I've only been to 4 or 5 games. First game I went to see the Livingston kid who left Bookdale after the season had started and went to Western Reserve Academy.
Yeah. Whole other conversation.
Green is really good. I know St. Ed's is really good. I haven't seen them.
Yeah.
And Raj went the other night to the Ignatius game.
Right.
I haven't seen the kids from Copley. They're freshmen. People have told me to go see them, but I haven't made it there yet. But you know what? It's crazy. I leave for the combine the day before you do for spring training. There's only 2 weeks left in high school basketball. Brody's last regular season game in D3 college basketball is next week. So we're getting old, man.
Yeah, it goes quick, man. It goes really quick.
Yeah.
It really does. I'll find a game or two.
We'll talk off. I'll look up who's playing who, and we'll talk off the air. So
yeah, we may need a Friday night hoops session somewhere, and we'll actually go into the game because it's inside. Thank you guys for coming in and listening to the A to Z podcast. I know we sometimes don't have a compass, but we truly do love having these moments. I don't know if we figured anything out in this last 50 minutes or so, but
Right.
I'm glad we got it. I'm glad we got it out.
I know. I agree. Shouts as always, the scene to the Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks, always open at AmericanFireworks.com. Tell them that A to Z sent you. For Andre, I'm Zach. We will talk to you later this week.
Hey, did you see the guy that tweeted us with the share video? We got the best listeners in the world, man.
No, you know what? I was busy last night. I saw that you replied to a tweet, but I didn't catch up on it yet. So
Yeah, catch up on it. The dude,
Okay.
he listened to the podcast and went and found exactly what I was talking about. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but shout out. And he came up with a great idea for us for something else, and it could turn out to be a great.
Hey, we
great
love.
I'm sorry.
Honestly, we love you guys. We love the feedback. We appreciate that you guys look forward to this, and we look forward to doing more of them. So we'll talk to you soon.
Konnichiwa, Cleveland.